Hi, Jeremy.
Hey, Matt.
Welcome back to my show.
Thanks, Matt. It's a pleasure to be here. Matt, I like high-performance cars, motorcycles, engines, really anything that will go fast.
Why would you choose low performance when you can have high?
Yep, agreed. So that's what I want to talk about today. High-performance engines, specifically 427 Sockhead engine.
Whoa!
I'm going to tell you why I like it. And then it's going to be story time because I want to tell you a little story about a 34 Chrysler Airflow, the greatest car that ever failed.
I'm intrigued.
You ready to do this, Matt?
Yeah.
Engine Noise Podcast is brought to you by oneiauto.com. Quality auto parts that ship quickly and come with thousands of free online videos that walk you through your installs. Hey, welcome to the Engine Noise Podcast for do-it-yourselfers like me who don't mind getting their hands dirty. I am your car guy, Jeremy Nutt.
And I'm Matt. Minus the spandex and cape, I am Jeremy's superhero sidekick.
Yeah.
If I had a cape, it'd be amethyst, by the way.
Nice. So, let's talk about the 427 Sockhead engine. Why? Because it's awesome.
You want to stop
I'm going to
bumping
tap
into
on
things?
I'm going to tap on everything, Matt. So the 427 Sockhead engine, it's called SOHC. That's how you pronounce it, even though it's SOHC. It's an acronym for single overhead cam.
Why isn't it SOHC?
Maybe it is, but everybody calls it a 427 Sockhead engine. It's a slang kind of thing. It's weird. It's old car guy stuff.
Cool car guy stuff.
I'm going to give you a little history on this.
Please do.
In 1964...
Wasn't even around.
Yeah, me neither. NASCAR was doing some racing. And the Hemi engine, the 426 Hemi, was absolutely dominating NASCAR. They won like 40% of the races or something. So, NASCAR says, this engine that you're using is not a legal engine going forward.
Lame.
Because it was a race-only Hemi, 426 cubic inch Hemi engine. It wasn't in production vehicles according to NASCAR. Now, Chrysler said, well, we put it in like race cars called factory experimental race cars. So Chrysler kind of dropped in a few cars here and there with like aluminum body panels, and they'd sell them to whoever wanted to buy them, but you couldn't actually register them on the street.
So a lot of people did not have them.
Like a couple hundred of them sold.
Yeah.
But that sort of got them into NASCAR racing in 64 with this giant monster 426 Hemi engine that absolutely dominated. NASCAR says no more after 64 because they won all the races basically.
Yeah.
And
what's the fun in that?
Chrysler got mad, basically said, I'm taking my engine, I'm going home. And they didn't race in 1965. Chrysler was just out.
Wow.
So then...
They were serious.
During the same time, Ford was developing their own engine to compete with the Hemi. Because they were like, oh, this Hemi engine's a big deal. We need something awesome to go against it. So they came up with a 427 Sockhead engine, which is a 427 cubic inch. Notice it's one more cubic inch than the Hemi. Convenient, right?
Yeah. In your face.
Exactly. And they put overhead cam heads on the engine, which allowed for bigger intake runners and more space for the exhaust to go through the head because the valves were in different spots. You had better control over the valve train, and you essentially could have bigger valves, and therefore you'd make more horsepower.
I see.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. So did they put this engine in cars that...
No. They sure didn't. What happened was they tried to get it into NASCAR racing because Hemis were allowed at that point. NASCAR said, no Hemi engines, and oh, by the way, Ford, you're not allowed to do these Sockhead engines either.
Well, did they develop it after?
They developed it, and then the Hemi was out.
That's poor timing.
Yeah, exactly. So then Ford was like, all right, well, we'll go to drag racing. They dropped it in a few factory experimental race cars, and they absolutely dominated. So they only made a few hundred of these engines. We'll say between 300 and 600 of the engines total.
Really?
Yeah, not many. The 426 Hemi, they made many thousands of. We'll say, 20,000 or something like that.
Wow.
So the 427 Ford Sockhead engine was estimated to be putting out 600 plus horsepower. And this is just like an engine that you can go to the dealership and you say, I would like to purchase this. And they say that'll be, $2,000 in 1964 or 5, whatever.
And good luck. Be safe.
Yeah, good luck with this. And you drop it in your race car and you go drag racing and you win a bunch of money because you're winning all the races. What happened was all these different drag racing teams got a hold of these engines and they started absolutely dominating everybody at the drag strip. These things they were actually built a lot like a Hemi with hemispherical heads, gigantic intake and exhaust valves, lots of airflow pumping through these engines, giant cubic inches, stock making 600 horsepower. So
It's crazy.
But what people were doing was they were adding like nitromethane and getting 2,500 horsepower out of these engines. But they would only last.
And they wouldn't explode?
They would. That was the problem.
Okay.
So basically, they were getting so much horsepower out of these engines that they would only last like 4 runs down the drag strip. And then by the end, the crankshaft would be falling out of the bottom of them.
Wow, that's a waste.
It's awesome, though, when you're making 2,500 horsepower out of a stock engine.
Yeah, I guess so, yeah.
The supply of these things essentially dried up. The drag racers used them for like 4 years. They won tons and tons of races. But Ford kind of stopped supporting them because they couldn't really put them in a production car because it's a 600 horsepower engine. It was massive, and it didn't make sense to put it in the car.
Yeah.
They also came out with a much more tamed down 429 engine that didn't have the overhead cams, and it didn't have 600 horsepower, and they dropped that in a Mustang. Since Ford stopped supporting it, the drag racers kind of ran out of supplies. They ran it into the early 1970s, and then the sockhead engines were pretty much no more. And the 426 Hemis continued to dominate drag racing at that point because that was the only one that people had to work with at the time.
Kind of wacky.
Yeah, and you can buy these engines now for a very low price.
Really?
The ones that still exist, I found an old eBay listing from like 5 years ago, and there was an original 427 sockhead engine that was $88,000.
That's cheap?
It's a very reasonable price, yeah.
Really?
No, it's actually, I mean, it's an insane price for an engine. But you can also buy a brand new one because there's actually companies that make brand new versions of this. Those ones go for $45,000, which is like half price of original, so it's really a great deal.
Okay.
Just imagine spending $45,000 on an engine.
So these people would go and buy this engine.
Yep.
This SOHC.
Exactly.
The SOHC head 427 Ford engine.
That's right, yep.
And they would just use it to put in their car, put a bunch of, what did you say through it?
Nitromethane.
Nitromethane, and basically blow the thing up just to win a race.
Yeah.
Spending all that money to do that. How much money would they make winning the race?
Not enough to cover the cost of the blown up engines. Definitely not. But in, I want to say it was 1966-ish, it was the first AFX, which is a factory experimental car, went over 200 miles an hour in the quarter mile with one of these engines. It was a big deal at the time. You couldn't. It wasn't common to go.
Record breaker?
At the time, it was. Yeah, fastest.
So it was all for fame and glory.
Yeah, showing off to your friends. Wow. Wouldn't you want to be the first one ever in the history of mankind to go over 200 miles an hour and a quarter mile?
Yeah, I guess if it was free.
Yeah, this isn't free. This is not even close to free. Can I actually add one more thing to this? There's another part of this story that I think is really interesting. I was at a car show last weekend talking to my friend there that has a Buick that's like slammed to the ground with an LS swap and a 6-speed manual, and it's awesome. So I'm talking to him, and one of his friends comes over, and he's like, I have a car over there that's like an old race car that is super cool. You should go check it out. It is a factory experimental, I think it was a 66 Mercury Comet or a Ford Falcon. I forget exactly which one. They're basically the same car. But it had a 427 sockhead engine in it.
Really?
The most biggest, giant, awesomest, cool Ford engine that was ever made. And this is only, I think, the second or third time I've ever seen one of these engines because they're so incredibly rare. I once saw one at a guy's house. He had a factory Ford Cobra. I want to say it's a 66 Ford Cobra, or Shelby Cobra, I should say. And he had a socket engine in that. And that is just the most ridiculous setup ever because the car doesn't weigh anything. And then you put the biggest, most behemoth engine in it possible, and it's just a death trap. So yeah, seeing one of these over the weekend was a big deal. I took a few pictures of it because it's really unique. And the car it was in was actually a factory race car from the 60s.
Yeah, that's cool.
That actually lasted all these years, and it had all kinds of records and stuff. It was a big deal. Wow. It was really, really neat to see. I have actually a couple pictures of the engine that I can post up on social media, on the social medias.
Nice.
For everybody to see.
So Jeremy, not only does 1A Auto sell high-quality auto parts, but they also have tools.
Like what?
Wrenches, socket sets,
Ratchets?
Yep.
Harmonic balancer pullers?
Of course.
Windshield wiper removers?
Yeah.
Volkswagen hubcap removal tools?
They do, actually.
Antenna removers?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. And
this is awesome.
You can get them all shipped fast and free with whatever parts you get from them.
Free shipping. Nobody does this, Matt.
Nobody.
By the time you add up parts and shipping from other people, you've already spent more than what you would spend at 1A Auto. And 1A Auto has awesome customer service, and they ship things fast. What else could you want, Matt?
The tools, the parts, and the online videos to fix your car yourself.
I like that, Matt.
1AAuto.com. Not only high-quality auto parts, but also tools and videos to help you get your job done yourself.
1AAuto.com, the one-stop shop. Have you ever come across something that you want so badly, but you can't have it because you don't have room at your house?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah?
Every weekend.
Give me an example.
Let's see.
Put you on the spot.
Yeah, you sure did.
Yep.
There's just so many cool things that I would want. I want an antique washing machine.
I mean, that's
Why?
pretty cool.
You know, no
Yeah.
reason, but it's so cool.
I agree. How are you going to wash your clothes without it?
Exactly.
I actually had this situation when I was 18 years old. Me and my friend Scott, shout out to Scott,
Hey, Scott.
are walking in through the junkyard because that's where we spent most weekends. So we're walking
That's
through the
your
junkyard.
candy store.
That's my candy store, exactly. So I'm walking through the junkyard and I see a car. Oh my goodness, is that what I think it is? And guess what it was, Matt?
I couldn't even guess.
It was a 1934 Chrysler Airflow. And my head was like exploding because I'd only seen one of those at that point in life. And actually, I don't even know if I've ever seen one since. These are really ridiculously rare cars and super, super unique. They were way ahead of their time and everybody hated them.
Do tell.
Well, let me back up the story a little bit. As soon as I saw this car in the junkyard, I was like, I need to have that.
Yeah.
But I'm 18 years old. I'm living at my parents' house. I already have 2 cars. And I'm like, what the heck am I going to do with this? By the way, it was burned. But we're going to skip that.
Yeah.
Okay, so it had a small fire, burned the interior, not a big deal. I go up to the front desk. What are you guys doing with that airflow back there? And the guy's like, I don't know what you're talking about, kid. The 34 Chrysler Airflow. And he's like, yeah, I don't know what car you're talking about. The burned old car in the back. And he's like, oh, yeah. What are you going to do with that? And I was like, I don't know, man, but I want it. And he's like, give me $500 for it. Oh, my God. I could probably come up with $500 at that point. I mean,
Right.
I was working at the grocery store.
You were hoping he was going to say like $10,000.
Exactly.
Like,
if he had said $10,000, I would have been like, oh, goodness, that's great.
Yeah.
Good for you. And I
I
would
don't
have
have
walked
to even
away.
think about this anymore.
Yeah, but this was $500, and the guy didn't even know like what it was, so I feel like I could have talked him down to like $250. I then am in a panic because I need to find a spot to put this car. Mm-hmm. Of course, I went to my parents and I was like,
How do I bring this
"Oh
up?
yeah, this is going to be awkward." Because of course, I already had my Impala at that point that was taken apart in their yard. It wasn't like I had nice cars. The 2 cars that I had were in 1,000 pieces across their driveway. There's no way they're going to allow me to bring home a burned 34 Airflow.
Yeah.
I then start like asking my friends' parents, like, "Hey, you got any spots at your cousin's farm?" And I'm asking everybody I know, and there's just no chance. There's just no spot to put a burned out.
Kind of
34
embarrassing.
It is. I know.
Can I just need one more car.
I know. It's a really weird addiction. And it's not like it's a nice car either. It's literally a burned car from 1934. Meanwhile, my friend Scott thinks I'm crazy. Why would you want a burned car?
Yeah.
And he's a car enthusiast, but he just thinks I'm wacko. So I went back every week and I visited the car for many weeks.
This
This
is like a reoccurring story with you.
I know, this happens a lot. So I visited the car for several weeks. I would say it was up to about 2 months. Every weekend I'd go back, pet it, see what's going on, check it out, make sure it's still in good shape. The hubcaps disappeared,
Oh, wow.
which got me sad because I was like, I should have had those hubcaps.
Just start with little pieces like that.
I know.
That's what you should have done.
I should have got pieces one at a time
Yeah.
before my parents realized I had a burned out car in their driveway.
Soon enough, you have an entire car.
Exactly. After like a couple months of doing this, the car disappears. And I'm devastated. I mean, it's like the worst feeling in the world because I can't have the car anymore. Who knows? It could have been crushed. Maybe some other guy got it for $100.
Yeah.
I don't know what happened to it. So moral is it disappeared. You can see like the remnants of it. The spot that it was in still had the like burned stuff around. From that point on, the Chrysler Airflow was then like a part of me, and I am sort of obsessed with them.
So you never saw that car again, by the way?
Never saw it again.
Okay.
Gone. I hope that it lived on somewhere and somebody restored it, and someday I will meet it again, though I won't know it. Well, I probably would, because there's only like a couple of them left. Yeah. So anyways, I'm sort of obsessed with these cars. I'm obsessed with them because they're so ahead of their time and everybody hated them for it. Chrysler basically started making these in 1934. They made them from 1934 until 1936. There's sort of like conflicting estimates out there, but overall, let's say they made like 30 or 40,000 of them. And
it's not a lot.
It's not a lot considering like a 2015 Toyota Corolla, they probably made 150,000 of them.
Yeah.
The other thing to think about is in 1934, it's just before World War II. And during World War II, there was programs that would collect up old cars from people's yards. You'd basically get scrap metal money, and all these cars would get melted. Yeah. So any old cars that were hanging around got melted for war efforts.
Yep.
So the chances of these things surviving up until like today are very, very slim. In 1934, though, they were a big deal because Chrysler had a straight-8 engine in them, which is a big deal because in 1933, that was the first year for the straight-6 for Plymouth. Oh. And so to jump from 1932, which had a 4-cylinder, to 1934 that had an 8-cylinder, and now it's like twice the horsepower, it's just like a big, big difference in technology in a very short amount of time. So that was a huge jump. And the Chrysler Airflow also had safety glass, which is like the stuff that prevents you from flying out the window when you roll your car over.
That's good to have.
Yeah, which like at the time...
Nobody had that?
No, nobody else had that. And it was a big deal because there's actually videos that you can find online of people like whipping baseballs at the glass and it not breaking because it's got a layer of plastic in between. Super cool. They were also the first ones to do curved glass. They had a Imperial model, which was like a limousine model of the Airflow, and I think it was a curved windshield on that, which is like the first time a curved windshield ever happened. They also had hydraulic brakes, a newfangled thing at the time. Around that time, Ford was just switching over from cables and levers and stuff to hydraulic, and Chrysler was pretty early on that. So having hydraulic brakes was a big deal. Chrysler also did all of these performance tests to show off how great this new car was because it looked very different than the other cars at the time. So they wanted to make a big advertising event for this. They went out to like the Bonneville Salt Flats and they ran these things hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of miles. There was actually like 70 records set, like speed and endurance records by these things. Fuel records of 18 miles per gallon. They did 93.
Really?
Yeah,
in 1934?
Yeah. They ran it for like 5,000 miles straight in some endurance test at an average of like 75 miles an hour or something ridiculous. Wow. They did all these things to promote how great this car was. They even took it to Pennsylvania and they launched this thing off a cliff. A 110-foot cliff. Rolls down the cliff upside down. It gets to the bottom. They get inside and they drive the car away.
No.
Yeah, it's absolutely awesome. You can hop on YouTube and you can actually find this. So it was a really, really cool car. It was really safe. It was built as a unibody car, which is like a modern thing that car companies are doing now, where it didn't have a body on a chassis. It was all one piece. It was almost like the car had a roll cage from the factory, like a race car does. It was way, way ahead of its time, and everybody hated it because it was ugly. It had what they call a waterfall grille, which is super ugly. I mean,
now I have to see it.
It's one of the uglier cars of 1934. At the same time, I loved it because it's so ugly and so unique. Actually, the other kind of fascinating thing that is about this car, there was some engineers that were starting to get into aerodynamics. They're looking at cars and they're going, well, if planes can fly, then what are we doing with our cars? Why aren't we making our cars aerodynamic too?
Yeah.
They start putting cars in wind tunnels, and they find out that most of the cars of the early 30s were more aerodynamic driving backwards than frontwards.
Well, that's useful.
Yeah, exactly. So they're like, well, Chrysler's not going to do that anymore. We're going to make a new car that's actually aerodynamic. That was actually the first aerodynamic car to come from Chrysler.
Hence the name.
Exactly.
Airflow.
Yeah, and they built the headlights into the fenders, which was like super unique and ahead of its time. There's just so much to love about this car.
Because they stuck out before?
Yeah, they were like separate entities that would sit on top of the fenders.
Funny to think about.
I know, right? Imagine like putting having separate headlights on the front of a 2010 Camaro right now? How weird would that be?
What's with your lights, man?
Yeah, that's what all the old school people are doing. So yeah, I'm obsessed with this car. I think about my 34 Chrysler Airflow that I didn't buy when I was 18. I think about it, I would say daily.
Wow.
I talk to my friend Scott about it weekly. And someday I hope to own a burned out 34 Airflow for the first time, if all goes well.
Or someday maybe you can get some help.
Yeah, I mean, that would be fine.
Yeah.
We could try that mental health
Let
first.
it go, Jeremy.
I can't do it.
Well, I was checking out the podcast stats the other day, and we've been downloaded in like 21 different countries.
Wow.
So if there's anyone out there that can get Jeremy his Chrysler Airflow,
For $500.
For $500, let us know.
Burned
please.
or not.
Burned preferably. You still have that image in your head.
I want the burned one instead of the unburned one. But I mean, I'm willing to take either as long as it's $500 or less.
I'm sure somebody's going to come through.
Contact the podcast. Or if you just have pictures of a Chrysler Airflow that you want to show me, just send them. Send them to help@enginenoisepodcast.com.
So this car is like your unicorn.
It really, really is.
It's like the unattainable.
And I could have had it, Matt. Gosh.
It was attainable at the time.
Yep. I could have been somebody. I could have been the guy in the Airflow.
So cool.
Yep. Crowds would be swarming around me.
Throwing baseballs at your windshield.
Rolling it down a cliff. Lighting it on fire. In that same video, they like drive it on two wheels. They throw a baseball at it. They do all kinds of weird 1930s old-timey endurance tests with it. They try and flip it over. They drive through the dirt. All kinds of fun.
Say, see if you can take this, huh?
Exactly. That's exactly what they were doing in the video. It was those people doing endurance tests on this car.
Why did it do so bad? Just because it was ugly? Like it sounds like it has so many cool features.
It was ugly, so that was number one. The other thing was it was expensive because it was like all new technology plus the 8-cylinder engine. So if the car is expensive and it's ugly, you're probably not going to buy it.
Good point.
The world is just not ready for the Airflow. I'm not sure if they are yet. I know I am.
Well, yeah, you are.
I'm probably the only one.
Are you ready, Jeremy? Because we're going to play a game. This is an easy one.
Good. I like easy ones because it makes me look smart.
Well, sometimes.
Are you lying and it's really hard?
No. It's easy. You have two choices, true or false.
Okay. 100%. I got them all.
Well, I'm going to read off a state and a traffic law, and you're going to tell me if it's true or false.
Okay, I got this.
Yeah?
There's one thing I know. It's laws.
Okay. Number 1, Kansas. You can't transport dead poultry in this state.
So you can only transport live poultry? Is that what they're saying?
That's the way the law was written, Jeremy. Yeah.
I will say that is true.
Ding, ding, ding.
See?
Correct.
1 for 1. Nailing them.
Told you it was going to be easy.
How do they move chicken around?
I don't live in Kansas, so I don't know.
Do they have to ship live chickens out of state to have them processed? We need to know more about this.
I don't know,
Matt.
man. I don't know.
Who makes these laws?
If you're listening to this podcast and you live in Kansas, Jeremy needs to know.
I do. Help@enginenoisepodcast.com.
Let's try this, Jeremy. Why don't you pick a state, and then I will give you a random traffic law, and you can tell me if it's true or false.
Okay, how about Indiana?
Indiana.
Yep.
In Indiana, it is against the law to sell cars on Sundays.
I feel pretty good about that one. I'm going to say that's true.
You are right. That is
Wow.
true. Yep.
Seems kind of strange to me.
Yeah.
I feel like all of these things are going to be pretty strange. Am I right here?
I mean, there's some strange traffic laws.
Okay.
Pick another state.
I'll go with Texas.
Texas. Let's see. In Texas, you may be arrested for displaying your middle finger while driving.
Arrested? I'm going to say false because I feel like you'd be getting arrested for flipping off somebody. No way. That's false.
Yeah, it is false.
Oh, thank goodness. Yeah, that would be crazy, Matt. I'd be arrested a lot.
Oh, yeah. You want to hear another one from Texas?
I would love to hear another one from Texas.
Okay. Here's another one from Texas.
Okay.
You must have windshield wipers to register a car, although a windshield is optional.
True. I have a friend in Texas.
Oh, you're cheating.
No, I'm not cheating. I just know that his car is very different than my car as far as legality goes.
Okay.
He would never pass an inspection in Massachusetts. Am I right?
Yeah. Well, you're right. That's true.
Nice.
Yeah.
So you don't need a windshield, but you do need wipers?
You do need wipers. Apparently, if you have a windshield. I guess that makes sense.
Yeah, I guess so.
You know.
So my friend that lives in Texas, he has a LS swapped Skyline, which is a big deal, with a turbo on it. He drives around with open headers. Are you familiar with what that is?
Very loud.
Very loud.
Basically, it's like right off of the engine.
Pretty much. Since it has a turbo on it, it's muffled quite a bit because a turbo kind of turns an engine. It makes it quieter because the exhaust has to go through the turbo and it kind of like bounces around a little bit. So it is quieter. Yeah, exactly. Yes. It is still really loud. And somehow he just drives it. I'm so jealous. And you know what I can't drive? My Impala.
Oh, your Impala.
Because my Impala with a full exhaust and a muffler is too loud in Massachusetts.
Wow.
Thanks, Massachusetts.
That's so sad.
Speaking of Massachusetts, I would like to hear Massachusetts.
Okay, Massachusetts. You cannot drive with a gorilla in your back seat.
That is false, because I drive with a gorilla in my back seat all the time. And I haven't been pulled over yet, Matt.
Wow. Not in your Impala, though.
No, I can't do that, because that is illegal, because I don't have an inspection sticker. So I'm going to go with false.
No.
Oh.
No, it's true.
It's true.
It is apparently true.
Really?
Yeah.
Did they really need to make a law for that?
Apparently. There was somebody that was driving with a gorilla in their back seat and it caused an accident. Had to be something like that.
And then the lawmakers are like, gosh darn it, we got to make laws for this.
No more gorillas in back seats.
That's it.
These gorillas in back seats are getting out of hand.
We got to draw the line. Cats are one thing, but gorillas, not having it.
No more gorillas in the back seats. Nice job, Jeremy.
Thanks, Matt.
Yeah.
Do I get a trophy?
No. But I'll tell you what. For winning, I'll let you do a show with me next episode.
What?
Yeah. We can do a podcast.
That sounds amazing.
Yeah.
I would accept that prize.
Yeah.
Thanks, Matt.
No problem.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode of Engine Noise, a podcast brought to you by our awesome sponsor, 1AAuto.com, quality auto parts that ship free and have thousands of how-to videos that walk you through your installs. Thank you to our producer, Jamie Prohaska, our editor, Patty Ford, and our marketing guru, Christian Hera.
Thanks, everyone. And Jeremy, as always, it was fun kicking back talking cars with you. We'll have another great episode of Engine Noise drop in 2 weeks. Our shows drop on the 1st and 15th of every month. Be sure to subscribe so that you'll be notified every time one of our episodes drop. And remember to like, follow, and share our show on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Oh, and if you like us, write us a review on iTunes.
Oh, Matt, don't forget to tell them about the car news and coffee that comes out in between every Engine Noise podcast episode.
Well, I don't have to tell them now. You just did.
Oh, yeah. Don't forget.
Thanks again for listening. And until next time, continue to DIY.
Do it yourself. Send us a picture of your car, especially if it's a 1934 Chrysler Airflow with a little bit of burn damage.
Get Jeremy his car back.
This Engine Noise podcast is brought to you by 1AAuto.com. Hit the subscribe button now so you'll know when a new episode drops. Have a question for Jeremy or Matt? Send us an email at help@enginenoisepodcast.com.
My girlfriend's texting me. We were supposed to go to the movies tonight, right, with another couple friends. And we wanted to go to a place that had food and beer.
Yeah.
And now she's like, no, we'll just go to this other one that doesn't have beer and we'll bring our own in. And I'm like, I'm 35 years old. I'm not sneaking beer into a movie theater. So
You're gonna walk in with a giant purse.
yeah, like
My mom used to do
sir,
that.
what are you doing? You're an adult.
Is
Come
that a
on.
man purse? Come on. If you want to borrow my computer bag to just
super
fill
slick.
with
Yeah,
fill
no,
with
it's
Bud
not
Ices.
happening. I'm not doing that.